So this is Baruch Fleischman here at the end of the day in the night Zohar from Parshas Pinchas. So it's dark outside. It's a time of din. We're going to go over here. We're going to look at this, try to understand what the Zohar is want to tell us here in Parshas Pinchas. We'll start right here, and it says, "V'yikach Moshe es atzmos Yosef imo." And Moshe took the bones of Yosef with him. Now in Kabbalah, the word atzmos also means the light. It means the pneumus, the ore that's within the bone. Atzmos tzaddik yisod olam. They are the bones of the tzaddik, which is the lashon yisod. Yisod foundation of the world, makes it possible for the world to exist. Darga de Yosef Tzaddik. This is the level called Yosef Tzaddik. While Lahu Itmar, in regards to this, it says like this: as Karbani and my sacrifice, Lachmi Leishai is like bread for me, the Ishai for my fires. L'seis lechem, so l'seis lechem, excuse me, the leis lechem ella araisa, but there is no concept of lechem by itself. Lechem is a gematria 3 times 26. Ella araisa, only the Torah. When the Torah says lechem, Beitz lechem, it means a place you could learn. L'chu l'chamuhu b'lachmi, come. So he means to learn from my Torah. Lachmi, eat together with me my bread. Be'inan ashkalos tzaddik. So these are really the grape clusters of the tzaddik. The tzaddik eats pri. The tzaddik is an eighth who makes a pri. Now that's my interpretation. And let's see what the Bash wants to say is the real teaching here. And I think we're down here, and we're going to try, let's see how I'm going to do this. There we go. Try to read it without the black print as much as possible. And so that he comes back to our pasuk about Yosef, Yikach Moshe es Atzmos Yosef. Now in Sod, both Moshe and Yosef represent spheros. Yosef, of course, is the sphere of Yisod. Moshe looks like he's in the middle line also, perhaps to Pharaoh. Let's look on. He says, so v'yikach Moshe as atzmos Yosef mochner mozim kan sod netzach and hod. He said this is really a reference to the concept of netzach and hod, which are 2 legs. Ki heim atzmos tzaddik yisod olam, and that is really, these are the bones, or we said before, this is the interior light of the tzaddik, who is the yisod olam, who founds the world. Atzmos shel tzaddik yisod olam. So he said, Shahu hamadrega shel Yosef HaTzadik, which is the madrega of Yosef HaTzadik, the tzaddik yisod olam. From him, all goodness has been born. Moshe, which really represents the sphere of Tiferes, which is above, which also is known as Chagat, Chesed Gevurah Tiferes. Lakach es netzach and hod. It takes the netzach and hod, or it took them. Shehem atzmos v'tzvakos hayisod and nikra Yosef, which are the bones themselves, meaning once again the line, and the accompanying angels that go with them, that go together with the Yisod, and that Yisod which is called Yosef. So somehow the Moshe took this concept of light, the light which is a light of Tiferes, and put it in together with Yosef. Let's see how it works. He says if you have a picture in your mind of what the netzach hod Yisod of Zer Anpin looks like, it's in a triangle formation, with netzach and hod being the hips and the Yisod being down below them slightly. So in order to be able to feed the Yisod, you have to be able to fortify and feed netzach and hod. So this is what he said. In regards to netzach and hod, it says like this: Lachmi leishai, bread, my bread, for my fire. Meforish for this lechem el horizon. Vein lechem el Torah. The only lechem that we're talking about is Torah. Kamosha Kosev, it says like this: L'chu, come, lacham o v'lachmi, eat from my bread. It's on a loma a carbon. That means like so. The matuk b'devash says like this. Once it say like this, that the carbon who sowed his karvos hatiferes b'malchus the yichud ayedech yisod. Let me read the words again. When in the Beis Hamikdash, when the carbon was offered, it became the secret. It had within it the secret of the hiskarvos hatiferes, of bringing the sphere of Tiferes in its seals into malchus the yichud ayedech yisod. So the translation again, to bring the Tiferes into malchus, that should become a oneness there. Al yedei yisod. Yisod is a part really of Tiferes, but it's also independent entity, which he's calling over here Yosef Atzadik. What's the ultimate idea? Yichud. Le'ishai. So he says to my fire. What is the fire? Chainu netzach and hod. What's netzach and hod got to do with it? He says ki al yedei shehem b'vashlim es azera, because the tipa of the Holy Kedusha, which is flowing into Yisod, it has to be ripened. Hatiferes misyached ima malchus, and then when that happens, then Tiferes is able to make a yichud. Tiferes is, it is another way of saying Zohar v'no, Zer Anpin and Malchus. V'oz nikras malchus lechem, and when that happens, then Malchus is called lechem, bread. Now I said before that 3 times Havaya represents Zer Anpin. The 3 lines of Zer Anpin, which is the line of Chesed, Gevurah, and Tiferes. All of those make our 26s. That's what ultimately winds up going into the Nukva, and as a result of that, she's called Lech. Shatiferes shehu sod HaTorah nehenen imen, because the Torah has a tremendous amount of joy. Now he says nehene, he grows from her. V'oz nitna hanan l'chashpil l'kol echad, and said then it's given to every individual. That said, when that yichud takes place, and it's possible for Tiferes to make that oneness with Malchus, and she becomes his lechem, his bread, then that bread, pieces of that bread, so to speak, of the blessing that comes from that yichud, comes all the way to all the whole world. So so come, eat bread of my bread. Being in the netzach and hod, so he says the netzach and hod. What about them? Ashkelos atzadik came anofim min yisod. They're actually, he says ashkelos, which means clusters of grapes in the vine, let's say, so to speak. The ashkelos the tzaddik came anofim min yisod, that the tzod branches out. He said, "But tzaddik it's pri v'yisod hu ilan ha'ose peros." So when you say, you think of the concept of yisod, another way of looking at it is the tree that makes fruit. So in other words, it's fruitful. It has all of the wonders within it. It's the ultimate delivery of that shefa. Now the Zohar comes and he says something else. These are words of Rebbe Shimon. A beginning itmar, because of this, it says like this: and they cast him on a staff or a pole, the 2 people had to hold it. So he says, well, why should it be a moat? Why did you say the word moat? Now this is a deep metaphor here. The use of a moat, so why do you say moat? Begin the lo havatam and tzaddik. The reason why is because there's no eighth. The eighth is a tzaddik, just a flash would speak. And because of them, it says, there's still lo yiten the olam moat l'tzaddik. You never give a moat to a tzaddik. They mean to say that the moat and the tzaddik don't appear together. Now, still, we have to understand what moat means. The who aids, the tzaddik is a tree. The Itmar Be'er says, we started that, Hayesh ba eitzim ayin, the same thing by the Meraglim. You may ask, is there a tree there or not? meaning someone who is a righteous person they can rely on. Akro aids the Ihud Tzadik, I will uproot the tree, the Ihud Tzadik. Ilan Darafikin Shum Bish al Ara. So he says these are the Meraglim. Akro aids the Ihud Tzadik, they uprooted any possibility that there would be a Tzadik. Ilan Darafikin Shum Bish, and they're the ones that they bring out the evil tongue. Al Ara, on the land itself, speaking in terms of Malchus. Bagarmo, V'yisa'uhu b'mot b'shnayim, and it caused this concept, which we're relying on the Matok, the Devash, to bring us a deeper understanding for the Ari. Bagarmo v'yisa'uhu b'mot b'shnayim, so that's what they had to do it with two, not just one tree, he said. You had to do it by two valves. So that's very mysterious. What does he mean by two valves? So now we have all of this that we're going to learn, that's Hashem, in the Matok B'Devash. So the Matok B'Devash writes like this. I'll say as much as I can of just light print only. B'shil netzach v'chod ha'emor, because of the netzach and hod, which really are the right, left leg. Ne'emor v'yisa'uhu b'mot b'shnayim. That's where you have this pasuk, pirush. Shenis motatu v'nifredu hanetzach and hod zeh mezeh v'na'aseh shnayim ba'avon l'meraglim. Translation. V'yinish motatu v'nifradu, that you moved and you changed and separated netzach and hod, because there's a phrase in Kabbalah that says netzach and hod shnei palge gufein, that they're really one. It's really one leg, but it has a male and a female side to it. He says that Pirish Shizmotu the Nifrida, that was separated the netzach and hod from being one. Zemizev Aser Shnayim Ba'avon the Meraglim, that became two because of the sin of the Lashon Hara of the Meraglim. Lama Nismoit is the Nifridu. So why did they go through these changes, these movements, and they separated? The Fishalo Hoyer Sham Tzadik, because there was no Tzadik there. Shuho Yisod, Hamakashran Amiyachad, that was able to tie them together, to make them into one. So what is the bigger deal about the Yisod? Because the Yisod, if it's in its purity, and that's why in Judaism, the most important thing really is Shmiras HaBris. This is that making the possibility of the flow of the season of our fathers, Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, to come purely. And if it's not pure and you started out on the wrong side, you build it up. Because that's a major concept. So here's the saying like this. When does a separation like this, what is the result of it? The result of a separation, that is that they pull themselves away from the Kedusha of the land, and they just wanted the physicality of the desert. That separation and the language that followed after it causes a split in the oneness of Netzach and Hod, and they are necessary as hoses, so to speak, are tributaries to Yisod. If there's no flow from Netzach and Hod into Yisod will dry up. This is what he's saying. B'shvil Netzach and Hod ne'emer b'Yisod. So because of Netzach and Hod, it said in regards to the Yisod, Bizman Acher, at a different time, Lo Yitain La'olam Mot L'Tzadik. Don't give a mot to the tzaddik. The tzaddik should not be split off. Shlo Yizmot V'lo Yasar Yisod. Never remove, never separate Yisod from Netzach and Hod. Now, exactly what that would entail is, I'm reading the words. I'm not sure that I understand what would actually be like, or what we can do, or that's where he says this is what the Meraglim did. Shul Nikra Eitz V'lo Mot, because the tzaddik, which is the Yisod, which is kept pure, that tzaddik which transmits the seed of our fathers before us. Shul Nikra Eitz V'lo Mot, so therefore it would be, if it was pure, it would be called a tree of life, growing tree, and not a moat, not a staff. If there is in the land of Israel, so let's understand land. Every time you see the word land, You're talking about Malchus, and he says that that's Malchus. But Eretz Yisrael is the place of the unity between the two. So on Malchus, Eight Shehu Yisod. Whenever you see that, you'll see that connection, that is the connection of Zohar V'Nuk, of the uniting of male and female. The eighth Shehu HaYisod, you will find that this Yisod is there. Oh, lo, maybe it's not there. Eilach HaMeraglim, because this is what's happened. So they came and they said something bad in regards to the light of Malchus. Ikro v'hirkichu akru, so they uprooted v'hirkiku, and they caused a distancing. The language itself did this, but also because they focused on the physicality rather than the spirituality. Akro v'hirkichu was yisod hanikra eitz min hamalchus, so this caused that distancing and that separation of the eitz, which represents the yisod, the tzad, the yisod olam. And this is the reason why they moved and why they were separated into two. The naasa, so they became the legs, instead of being one leg, they became two vavs, called echad vav la'atzmo, b'licha yisod meyachad. So just imagine a flowchart. And the flowchart has to go down three lines, meet in the middle. And you've probably all seen these kind of charts in Kabbalah before. So you see, all of this flow is necessary that all the parts be there and be as pure as possible. If a situation happens where we misuse the concept of Yisod, then what happens is that it separates. And as a result of that, he's saying that the two spheros of Netzach and Hod become two vaults, independent, with no connection to Malchus. That's the shir today. It's Baruch Fleischman. This is the night Zohar, Parshas Pinchas.